Hello and welcome back. My name is Venus Green. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to be talking about this second half of August and all of the excitement that it's bringing to us. All right. If you like, share, subscribe, comment, thank you so much. All right. So we had the first half of August here that probably changed our story. In the second half of August, we are going to be talking about how does this new story fit into my real life, right? Because we probably had some breakthroughs. Some of us had some realizations. We made some new decisions, right? Now we have to figure out, where does this fit into my schedule, my workload, the money, what's required there? What about my relationships? And also, how much energy is this going to require of me? And that is just where the astrology takes us now. So we are moving from Leo into Virgo, right? So that's like going from desire, visibility, possibility into different things like all of the details, the consequences, the capacity, and definitely follow through, right? All right, so in your rising signs, we're going to go and take a look at where is there a new encouraging opportunity that's happening for you? Where might you need a reality check, right? What might be reaching its limit around this time, and where this Pisces lunar eclipse is going to fall in your chart on August 28th, okay? We'll also do a separate video for that, but just a little sneak peek. See you in the rising signs. For Aries Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August here, you have something related to romance, children, or maybe a personal passion project that is gaining some momentum. This might look like an invitation that's coming your way. It could be an encouraging conversation that you have. It could be support coming in from someone who sort of sees the potential in what it is that you are trying to do. Now, that opportunity is likely going to come with some challenges because you have Mars moving through Cancer. That's the 4th house for you. So it's your private life. The real question here is not about whether you want this, because you most likely do, but it's whether your current home life, energy level, relationships, and your schedule can support it. Do you have folks that you can delegate to? Because you certainly can't carry everything by yourself. From the 13th through the 17th, we've got Mercury connecting with Venus, and then it's going to join up with Jupiter in your 5th house. And then we also have Venus in the 7th house making a sextile to Jupiter. So maybe there's a partner, a client, a romantic interest, some sort of supportive person that is likely going to help you feel that something is more possible in your life. So for some Aries, this might involve a creative project, right? Maybe you're trying to start your own business. You're trying to gain some greater visibility. For others, it's going to be a development that is probably surrounding dating, a relationship, or maybe one of your children, right? It's probably a very genuine opportunity coming your way. Caution here is that August 17th, we're going to have Mars square Neptune. So Mars in Cancer can be quite protective. Don't necessarily think that's a bad energy. It is sometimes communicated as like the mother bear, though, so just keep that in mind. You might feel really compelled to defend a family member, maybe to preserve some sort of emotional security that's going on. You might just be trying to step in because you are seeing that a loved one is struggling. That instinct is probably going to be pointing you towards something really important. Remember that Neptune is involved, so you may not have the full story yet. You might possibly react because something feels very urgent. So that means you might be trying to take some responsibility before anybody asks you for help, or you might be trying to make a decision through the emotions of worry or anger. So maybe you're hurt. There's some sort of emotional overwhelm here. Before you act, do your best to pause long enough to try to separate the feelings from the facts, right? Is there really an immediate problem, or are you just anticipating one? Are you trying to help, or are you really more in like rescue mode? And is this thing really genuinely yours to handle? Maybe it's the responsibility of someone else and you are trying to step in a little bit too soon. Mercury is going to be trying Saturn, so that should help you slow down the reaction that you have if you are giving that a little bit of your focus, right? So try to create a real plan instead of just reacting. Ask, what this opportunity is going to require from you, right? Your schedule, your household, your finances, your energy before, again, you try to rush in and help with something. Doesn't mean you shouldn't, but probably, again, you should have all the facts, right? You definitely can care deeply without volunteering to take on the entire situation. If we take a look at the 21st through the 25th, we've got Venus opposing Saturn on the 21st, so that's across your relationship axis. Now, because Venus rules both your second house of money and also your seventh house of partnerships, it's probably going to involve your income, your salary, your expenses, the commitment that you have with others, your time, and the division of responsibility between you and another or others. So it looks like someone may really genuinely value what you bring, but I think it's important here for you to determine whether they actually value you or they are just relying on you, right? And your energy and your time. In a professional situation, this might look like there needs to be some clearer understanding of the payments due, the deadlines that are due, the responsibilities, right, of who's carrying what. That probably is going to need to be sorted out. If this is a relationship issue, then it is very likely around how this partnership works in terms of real life, right? When we have real life demands that kind of enter the picture, are we still, equal partners here? Who is the person who adjusts their schedule? Who handles the details of what's happening? Who is sort of carrying all of the emotional labor, or is that really an equal division? Then we're going to have the Sun and Mercury meet with the South Node in your 5th house, and then they're just going to be popping over into Virgo here. So this is going to look like some old role that's kind of reaching its limit. You might be less willing to perform things for approval, right? You're less willing to chase attention from someone who doesn't consistently show up for you. Could also be that there's a creative project that's just kind of running on sheer force of your personality. So give that some thought as well. If there is some sort of child-related development that's happening, it might require you to or maybe another family member to, rearrange either your work schedule or the family schedule that you have, right? Something meaningful is trying to move through here, but the old way that you used to support all of these things is going to be shaken up just a little bit. If we take a look at the 27th and the 28th, we've got Mercury meeting with the Sun in Virgo on the 27th. So that's going to bring some clarity around your work, health, daily schedules, childcare, all of your daily operations and appointments. And then on the 28th, we've got the Pisces lunar eclipse. So that's going to activate your 6th, 12th houses. And then the Sun and Mercury are going to be making a square to Uranus over in your 3rd house. So this looks like news or paperwork or transportation, maybe technology, right? There's some sort of sudden schedule change that is probably going to force you to make an adjustment in these areas. There's also the disruption that looks like it could kind of expose that the routine that you have has really only probably been functioning in an effective way because you've kind of been quietly absorbing all of the overflow. So if that's how you're feeling, definitely give that some thought, right? You have to remember all of the things because everybody else forgot, right? You're covering the gap. You're handling all of the extra tasks. It's important that you give some attention to exhaustion and how much rest that you need during this time as well, right? Because Jupiter is the ruler of this eclipse and is in your 5th house. There may be some pressure to connect directly with maybe a romantic partner. Maybe there's a child-related development that is sort of growing around this time. So that might mean that your child, your child's needs are kind of altering your schedule and what you've been keeping as your daily schedule. Could be that there's a relationship that has kind of become more demanding because it's maybe moved, and I'm thinking romantic here, it's kind of moved out of that sparkly, exciting stage. It's kind of, again, moved into real life, right? So it looks a little bit different now. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces and is in your first house. So that's kind of reinforcing this need for you to protect your own energy and kind of recognize where your boundaries have maybe become a little bit blurry. Whatever is coming up for you is trying to show you that the opportunity can't be built on exhaustion, right? You need to have time for rest. You need to have time to make sure that your schedule allows for all the things that you're trying to bring in. Then if we take a look at the end of the month, we've got Jupiter trine Saturn on the 31st. So that's showing that there's a part of this opportunity that definitely has some real potential, and it can become more stable. But what you need to understand is that boundaries and support are actually necessary. They're things that you need so that you can allow something meaningful to grow. And then Mars is going to be making the square to Saturn on the 1st of September. So any decisions that are made purely from guilt or anger or fear or, again, protectiveness, those things are going to be meeting a practical limit come the 1st of September here. So you might need to delay something. You might need to renegotiate an agreement that you've made. You probably will need to ask for help, right? Or maybe just set some firmer boundaries around the home and family responsibilities. Whatever agreements are developing here near the end of August, though, might need to be revisited in the fall once Venus moves into her pre-retrograde shadow. So again, keep that in mind. You definitely have some opportunities that are coming in the second half of the month, but you just need to make sure that your schedule, the relationship terms, the role that you have been carrying is going to be able to support that and also be able to build upon that, right? Because you want to have something for yourself in the end during this process. Good luck to you, Aries. For Taurus Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. This second half of August here is going to bring an important development around home, family, housing for some of you. Fourth house is our private life. Now, you might be considering a move. You might be changing how the household functions in some way. You might be trying to help a family member. Maybe you're trying to improve your living situation, or maybe just make room for something new in your life. Your chart ruler, Venus, is going to be moving through Libra, your 6th house. So that's work, health, schedules, and the daily responsibilities. So the deeper question you have going on here is what this home or family development is going to require from your body, your money, or your daily life, right? You definitely are capable of making everything work. What you should be taking a look at is, does that automatically mean that you are the person who is responsible for making everything work? The 13th through the 17th. First here we have Mercury connecting with Venus and then also joining up with Jupiter in your 4th house. And then Venus is also going to sextile Jupiter. So this could bring some encouraging information your way involving the home, maybe a repair that's happening. Maybe it's about a family member, could be a parent here. Could also be a household expense. Because Mercury rules your 2nd house of money and your 5th house of children, this could also be a plan that you have that involves either a child, a personal project, or some sort of financial decision, right? A solution is probably going to appear here. Someone might be offering you some support, or there could be a conversation happens that kind of helps you understand the next step and how that feels more possible for you. Now on the 17th, Mars will be in Cancer, making a square to Neptune in your 12th house. Mars rules your 7th house of partners and agreements, and so there's like an emotional or maybe unclear conversation with another person that will be part of this complication here. Someone might be upset. They might be very protective. They might be evasive. They might be communicating indirectly with you. You might feel this immediate urge to either defend a family member or maybe solve this problem for them before you have the full story. Mars in Cancer can act from a very strong emotional or loyalty place. So keep in mind that Neptune is involved, right? The feeling might feel very real to you, but the facts might be incomplete. So it's important to ask some direct questions. It's important to confirm appointments or paperwork or the cost, what the terms. Emotional conversation that's happening is the entire conversation. You will have the ability to protect someone without immediately taking full responsibility for all of the consequences of this situation. Now let's take a look at the 21st through the 25th. We've got Venus opposing Saturn on the 21st. So that's across your 6th, 12th house axis there. Because Venus is your chart ruler, this is your body, your energy, your work, your daily life. Those things are going to give you a very honest assessment of what is sustainable for you right now. So a home or a family arrangement might fail, right? That may not be the most healthy for you. You might be adjusting to a work schedule, right? Or maybe covering the additional expenses that come up. Maybe you are managing all of the appointments, right? Or keeping a very private concern from affecting the others in your orbit. Saturn also rules your career house. So there could be a professional expectation or maybe some institutional rules coming in that are going to limit how much flexibility you actually have here. This is also going to be a period when work and private life are kind of going to stop cooperating in a polite way. So this might look like a boundary, a schedule change. Maybe someone is requesting leave. Maybe there's a conversation around workload, some sort of redistribution maybe of the family responsibilities that's going to become necessary. Then we've got the Sun and Mercury meeting up with the South Node in your 4th house just before they move into Virgo. So this is like an old family role or maybe a household pattern that is going to be reaching its limit. So you might no longer want to be the person who automatically stabilizes everything. Maybe there is a family member that needs to accept more responsibility. Maybe there is a living arrangement that is going to need to be changed. In some way, you are starting to recognize that preserving the peace in this household situation has really required you to stay quiet, and you're going to have to come to terms with what that arrangement is actually costing you, right? The home or the family story is going to continue, but your role is going to need to change in that situation. Then we've got the 27th and the 28th. Sun in Virgo on the 27th is going to meet up with Mercury. That's going to bring some clarity around either a child issue, a romantic situation, or some personal priority that you have been carrying. So you might finally understand here what something needs, right? And whether it's worth the time, energy, and the money that's involved. And then we've got that Pisces lunar eclipse activating your 5th and 11th houses. And the Sun and Mercury are going to be making a square to Uranus in your 2nd house. So this looks like an unexpected expense. It's an income development that's happening. Maybe there is a change in resources that's going to affect a child or a personal project or a friendship, right? Or a future goal that you had in mind. We're looking at here whatever this opportunity is and what it's going to cost, right? Because it's probably going to be more than you originally expected. Maybe a child's needs are going to alter the household budget in some way. Whatever this opportunity is, it might be very exciting, but it's also going to be difficult to maintain alongside all of the current family responsibilities. And then we've got Jupiter, which is the traditional ruler of Pisces in this eclipse. So in your 4th house here. So that ties this culmination directly back to home and family. Again, your priorities might need to change because your private life has changed. Or maybe you aren't able to fund or schedule or emotionally support every one of these possibilities all at the same time, right? This eclipse is going to help you to sort of choose which future is genuinely the one that's for you now. And then the very end of the month, we've got Jupiter trine Saturn on the 31st. So that's going to be helping in terms of home, living situation, and whatever's happening with the family to become a little more stable, right? Support is probably going to become available to you in some way. Maybe there's a private matter that's going to start to settle down. Maybe there's some behind the scenes planning that you're doing very carefully, and that's going to help create a stronger foundation for you. Keep in mind that Mars is going to be square Saturn on September 1st. So this looks like a conversation, a family responsibility. Maybe there's a paperwork issue or an agreement that's just kind of reaching its limit here. You might need to delay a plan or ask another person to handle their portion a little more effectively. Or maybe you just need to stop compensating for a system that's just not functioning very well anymore. Venus is also going to be entering her pre-retrograde shadow on the 31st. That's in your 6th house. So definitely pay attention to work, health, routines, coworkers, any caregiving that you're doing. The division of labor is going to become important here, right? Some of these issues are likely going to return and need some revision later in the fall when Venus is in full retrograde. So Taurus, something definitely meaningful is going to be changing around your home and family situation, but what's needed here is either an honest budget, a workable schedule, or some level of support that exists beyond just good intentions, right? You need a really strong foundation so that you can do what you need to do out in the world. Best of luck to you, Taurus. For Gemini Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August for you is going to begin with a conversation. Maybe it's an interview, maybe an announcement coming your way, or a decision that seems very manageable at first and then kind of starts to change the whole structure of your life. Your chart ruler is Mercury. Is going to be moving from Leo, your 3rd house, into Virgo, your 4th house. So something involving communication, paperwork, writing, could be an important conversation. Something is quickly going to become the story about home, family, housing, and where you need to be physically located. Then by the time of this Pisces lunar eclipse, it's also going to be affecting your career and your public direction. So whatever it is that you learn, say, sign, or decide is going to change how home and work fit together for you. From the 13th through the 17th, we've got Mercury connecting with Venus, then joining up with Jupiter in your 3rd house, and then we've got Venus sextiling Jupiter as well. Now, Jupiter rules your house of career, partnerships, and important agreements. So this may be more consequential than just a pleasant conversation. You could receive some news from a manager or a recruiter or a professional contact of some kind. Maybe you have recently had an interview, you're presented with a proposal or a contract. The conversations are just beginning to move forward for you. Now, Venus is in your 5th house, so it's going to add into that some creativity or romance or children, right? Your personal visibility. Some of those are going to start to become a part of this story, right? So someone may really like your idea. They might support your work. They might help you to reach the right people. There may be a real genuine opening for you here. But on the 17th, Mars in your 2nd house is going to be making a square to Neptune in your 11th. So the financial expectations that are connected with either a group or a team or an organization or some future plan that you have probably aren't very clear at this time. Someone might be really enthusiastic without being specific about maybe the compensation that's involved. There could be a project that's going to require more labor or equipment or travel or just overall personal investment than was originally discussed with you. You could also just be feeling some pressure to spend money because you are afraid of missing an opportunity of some kind. Mars in Cancer can become very protective around financial security for you. So you might react really quickly if income feels threatened in some way. You might agree to an expense because the plan feels really emotionally important to you. I recommend slowing down and verifying the numbers. What's guaranteed? What are you being paid? What work is actually required of you, and who's kind of covering the cost if this plan either takes longer than expected or takes a different turn. Mercury is going to be trine Saturn, so that's going to help you move from kind of like this exciting possibility into what are the realistic terms of this agreement. From the 21st through the 25th, Venus is going to oppose Saturn on the 21st, so that's 5th, 11th houses for you. Creative project, child-related issue, again, could be a romantic situation or just a friendship, right? There's a group commitment here that's going to require more of a mature decision. You might realize that something that you enjoy doesn't really fit like the expectations of a team or a community that you're involved in. There might be a collaboration that needs some clearer boundaries. There might be a friendship that feels different once the money or the responsibilities or kind of the long-term plans start to enter into the conversation that's happening. Could also be a romantic relationship that needs to address whether both people are actually moving forward toward kind of the same future. Then we've got the Sun and Mercury meeting with the South Node in your 3rd house before they enter Virgo. This looks like an old discussion, an old story, or decision-making pattern that's kind of run its course. So you might choose to stop explaining yourself to someone who seems just committed to misunderstanding you. You might withdraw from a conversation that keeps kind of producing words but no actual decisions. You might also recognize that gathering more information has just become this clever way of postponing a choice, right? In Gemini, you definitely can find like 12 additional possibilities before breakfast. But by the 25th of August, there will be one possibility that's going to need to become the plan, right? And that plan probably will involve home or family more directly than you originally had expected. The 27th and the 28th, Mercury meets the Sun in Virgo in your 4th house on the 27th. So because Mercury is your chart ruler and also rules the 4th house of home, this is going to kind of bring some clarifying important points around your moving, a move or some living arrangement that you have. So it could be lease, mortgage, a repair that's needed. There's some kind of property decision for some of you. Could be about a parent or a family member. It might be about working from home or the location that's required for a job that you want. So you might suddenly understand why your home situation has been kind of affecting your work, right? Or why a professional path doesn't really fit your personal life anymore, right? Then we've got the Pisces lunar eclipse is going to activate your 10th house of career, leadership, and public responsibility. So at the same time, we also have the Sun and Mercury squaring off with Uranus in your 1st house. So there's a career announcement, there's a management change, there are some new responsibilities headed your way, right? There's a shift in your work location. Maybe there's just a professional culmination that's going to require a quick personal decision from you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are leaving a job. It could also be a promotion. It could be the completion of a project. There could be leadership changes at your work. Maybe you are looking at a new schedule or maybe doing some remote work. Some way the terms of your professional direction are going to need to change around this time. Now, because Uranus is in your 1st house, you might also be the one surprising everybody else. So you might choose a different living arrangement, right? There might be a professional direction that just kind of makes more sense for the person that you're becoming, right? Or maybe a family priority that just doesn't match what others really expected of you or have been expecting of you. Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces and is also in your third house. So that would strongly suggest that whatever career development arrives through the news or an interview or a contract, that news and that career change are probably going to be like part of the same story for you. And then Jupiter is going to be trining Saturn on the 31st. So that helps the communication opportunities, the professional networking, or the long-term goal kind of look more substantial to you. The right contact might appear around this time. There could be a contract or a proposal that just becomes a little more clear. Could be a learning opportunity that's going to support your future direction. We do have Mars squaring off with Saturn on September 1st. So the budget, the compensation, the workload, or the cost of participation here is going to require a firm decision from you. You might need to negotiate better pay, reduce your expenses. Maybe you need to decline a group commitment that you've been involved in, or maybe you just stop funding a plan that's not giving very much back to you. Venus also begins her pre-retrograde shadow in your 5th house on August 31st. So definitely pay attention to the developments involving romance or children or personal projects. Some of these stories are probably going to return and require some revision later in the fall when Venus is full retrograde. So for you, Gemini, important information is opening a door for you. Walking through it is going to require changes to your home, your career, your budget, or your long-term plans. So the decision is also likely to surprise you or the other people in your orbit. But this period here is definitely asking you to organize your life around where you are actually going, right? And not around a plan that only made sense for the person that you used to be. Good luck to you, Gemini. Cancer Rising, welcome. I hope you are well. The second half of August is going to begin with some encouraging news about money, compensation, work, or a resource that makes a larger plan feel possible for you. But your chart ruler, the moon, is moving toward this lunar eclipse in the 9th house of travel, education, legal matters, relocation, beliefs, and long-term direction. So this is not only a money story, but there is a financial or professional development that is likely going to change where you believe your life is heading. And with Mars moving through Cancer in your 1st house, you might feel like you're ready to act. Now, the caution here is making sure that you are responding to confirmed information rather than fear or urgency or just this instinct to protect everyone involved. If we take a look at the 13th through the 17th, we've got Mercury connecting with Venus and then joining up with Jupiter in your 2nd house. Venus in your 4th house is also going to be making a sextile to Jupiter. So this can bring some encouraging news involving income, compensation, a work opportunity possibly, maybe your household finances. It's also maybe some family support or just money that's connected with your property and your living situation. Jupiter rules your 6th house of work and your 9th house of education, legal matters, and just larger opportunities. So the financial development could come through a new role or a work assignment. Maybe it's better compensation. Maybe it's training or certification that you're working on. Could be travel or relocation planning as well. Venus in your 4th house suggests that home or family may be part of the reason that this really matters to you, right? More income or support could make a move, a household repair, a household change, or just a family decision possible for you. But on the 17th, we've got Mars squaring off with Neptune in your 10th house. Now, Mars rules your house of career, also your 5th house of children or creativity. So you might feel really protective of your work, your reputation, children if you have them, or just the right to choose your own direction. Well, Mars in Cancer can act from a place of emotion or loyalty, right? And that need to kind of defend what feels vulnerable. That might be appropriate, but Neptune is going to suggest here that the professional situation may not be fully clear just yet, right? Leadership might be vague. A promise might sound really more concrete than it is. You might be sensing that something is wrong without really knowing exactly what it is. You could also want to make a quick decision, right? Just because something feels uncertain or maybe threatening to you, right? Pause before you turn that concern into any kind of confrontation, though, right? Confirm what was said. Ask about the role, the pay, the timeline, the expectation, or the authority that's involved. And definitely avoid sending emails while your blood pressure is kind of helping you write them, okay? Mercury is going to be trine Saturn, and that will support a direct, practical conversation to happen. And you can also advocate for yourself without making the uncertainty more dramatic than it needs to be. The 21st or the 25th, we've got Venus opposing Saturn on the 21st. So that's going to be 4th, 10th house for you. You can bring some real tension between the private life and the public responsibilities here, right? A career expectation might interfere with your family needs. Maybe a partner's work situation is affecting the household. Maybe some shared expenses are going to limit a move or a repair or an educational plan in some way. Maybe someone else is relying rather heavily on your ability to adjust rather than adjusting themselves. Now, Venus rules your home and your future planning houses. So Saturn rules then the partnership, the contracts, the shared finances, and the obligations. So the issue might be whether everyone involved is actually contributing to the plan in a meaningful way, right? Not just simply offering some sympathy, right? Is there actual participation? Who is changing their schedule? Who is contributing financially? Who is handling the appointments and the paperwork? And definitely who's available once the arrangement becomes inconvenient, right? Again, who's adjusting, you or them? Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet the South Node in your second house before Mercury moves into Virgo, So this looks like an old income arrangement, a pricing structure, an expense. Maybe it's a belief about security that is reaching its limit. So you might realize that you have been undercharging for your services. You might have been accepting inconsistent compensation for one reason or another. Maybe you are depending too heavily upon one source of income. Or there could be this measuring your value by how much an employer or a client or a family member appreciates what you do, right? Financial story here is going to continue, but this old definition of safety is not going to be enough any longer. So we're taking a look at that. 27th and the 28th. Mercury is going to meet the Sun in Virgo in your third house on the 27th. So this can bring some clarity through conversations, applications, a contract, an appointment. Some piece of information here is coming through. Mercury rules both your third house of communication and your 12th house of private or hidden circumstances. So something that you did not previously know or something that you had not been ready to discuss is probably going to become easier for you to understand around this time. Then we've got the Pisces lunar eclipse that's activating your 9th house on the 28th. Now, because the moon is your chart ruler, you always feel the moon movements a little deeper, a little more personally, right? So a decision that might be developing around education or training, travel or relocation, maybe publishing, teaching, or just larger professional direction for you. This eclipse is going to be opposing the Sun and Mercury, while we also have the Sun and Mercury squaring off with Uranus in your 12th house. So there is a hidden detail, a confidential conversation, there's an unexpected document, there is maybe a sudden administration change that's going to alter the plan for you, right? You might be receiving a decision. You might discover that there is some sort of overlooked condition related to what's happening. You might learn that a schedule or a cost has changed for you. You might finally be acknowledging a private concern that you have been trying to talk yourself out of. Now, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of this eclipse and is in your second house. So that ties the decision directly to money. Can you afford the course, the trip, the move, the professional transition, right? Will it improve your earning potential? Does this opportunity reflect what you value now? Those are the kind of questions you're going to need to ask yourself. Well, Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces and is in your 10th house. So this eclipse is probably also going to change how you understand your career or public purpose. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to abandon the path you're on. It might mean that choosing a path that's more honest about where you are going and what that journey is going to require from you. The very end of the month, we've got Jupiter in your second house trining Saturn on the 31st. This can really help to stabilize money and career situations, right? Compensation might become clearer. A job opportunity might become more serious. Maybe there is a credential, a training program, some sort of publishing project that is going to start to begin to support your professional direction. You might see how to turn your knowledge and your experience into something more financially useful. I will say that Mars is going to be square Saturn on September 1st. So there is a professional rule, a deadline, a responsibility, or maybe an authority figure that's going to require a firm response from you. Now, because Mars is in your first house, the issue might feel a little bit personal, right? Try not to treat every limitation as a rejection of your professional abilities. Try not to take every professional disagreement as a battle of your worth. Mercury is going to be sextiling Mars on the same day, and that would favor direct factual conversations taking place, right? So ask for clarification, state what is realistic, do your best to negotiate a boundary, and make a decision from the facts rather than an emotional temperament that's happening in the moment. Well, Venus is also going to enter her pre-retrograde shadow in your 4th house on the 31st. So pay attention to home, family, property, household agreements. Some of these questions are probably going to return and need some revision later in the fall when Venus is in full retrograde. So for you, Cancer, there is a financial or professional opening that is developing, right? But it may require you to rethink the larger direction, the household plan, or the support that you can realistically count on from other people. The strongest choice is not simply the one that appears the safest from the outside, right? It's the one that can support your income, your future, and your private life that you are trying to protect. Good luck to you, Cancer. Leo Rising, welcome. The second half of August here might bring more attention to you. It's your choices, your work, your visibility, and the direction that you want to take next. Mercury and Jupiter are moving through Leo in your 1st house. So there's a conversation, an invitation, an announcement, or personal decision that could increase your confidence or maybe place you more directly in the spotlight. But your chart ruler, the Sun, is also moving toward the South Node in Leo. So you might be gaining visibility while becoming much less willing to perform some old version of yourself. On the 13th through the 17th, Mercury is going to connect with Venus. It's also going to join up with Jupiter in your 1st house, and then Venus will be making a sextile to Jupiter. So this can bring an interview, a proposal, a professional conversation, or a decision that kind of puts your name more visibly on the work. Now, Venus rules your communication and career houses, so writing, content, teaching, contracts, or an important professional contact may be involved with this. Jupiter rules your 5th and 8th houses. So the opportunity may also connect with creativity, children if you have them, romance, or maybe the resources that you share with another person. There may be genuine potential here, but on the 17th, Mars in Cancer is going to square Neptune in your 9th. Now, Mars moving through your 12th house of private stress, exhaustion, hidden circumstances, and matters developing behind the scene. So maybe a family concern, an emotional burden, an educational plan. Maybe it has to do with a trip or a relocation matter is probably going to be less clear than it actually appears. Now, Mars in Cancer can be fiercely protective, but in the 12th house, you might hold frustration in until it begins to make a decision for you. So do your best to avoid responding to assumptions. Confirm the details, the ownership, the travel requirements, the costs involved, and notice whether you are defending the opportunity itself or if maybe you are reacting from some old fear of maybe being unsupported or misunderstood. The opening might be real. You simply need the private details to be able to support the public decision that's being made. The 21st through the 25th, Venus is going to oppose Saturn on the 21st, so that's across your 3rd, 9th house axis. So this looks like a contract, an educational plan, a trip, some sort of publishing project, or maybe a professional conversation is going to require more time, more documentation, additional responsibility, or just more commitment in general than was expected. Now, because Saturn rules your work and partnership houses, maybe it's an employer, a client, or a partner, or an agreement that is kind of setting the terms here. Doesn't automatically mean the answer is no. It does mean that the plan needs to become real. So we're then going to see that the Sun meets with the South Node in Leo on the 22nd and followed by Mercury then on the 25th. So because the Sun is your chart ruler, this is probably going to feel a little more personal for you, right? It's an old title, image, or role, or maybe it's just a way of seeking recognition that no longer feels like it fits. You may be tired of appearing confident while you are privately carrying way too much. You may receive attention and then realize that you no longer want to use it to kind of keep repeating the same message. Or maybe there's an old opportunity that returns and it's testing whether it truly belongs in your future or it's something that just merely feels familiar to you. Now, as the Sun and Mercury enter your 2nd house, the question's going to become more practical, right? What does this role pay? What does it cost? And does the compensation actually reflect the person that you are becoming? 27th and 28th, we've got Mercury meeting the Sun in Virgo on the 27th. It's going to bring clarity around income, pricing, expenses, or what your work is actually worth. Then the Pisces lunar eclipse is going to be activating your 2nd and 8th houses. So this might bring a development involving a partner's income. Could be about debts or taxes, insurance, a reimbursement of some kind. Or maybe it's the division of those shared expenses. At the same time, the Sun and Mercury are going to square Uranus in your 11th. So this is maybe a friend, an audience, an organization, some sort of collaborator that you've been working with might suddenly change the financial plan. Well, there's an opportunity that may affect your income, right? It's a group project that may require more investment, possibly someone else's changing of the circumstances is going to alter the way that they are able to contribute. Jupiter, the ruler of this eclipse, will be in your 1st house. So your growth is part of the reason that this agreement needs to change. You may be outgrowing an old rate or role or a division of a responsibility. Read the terms very carefully. Excitement about the future should not be used to sort of make a vague financial arrangement look or feel really solid. The very end of the month, we've got Jupiter trining Saturn on the 31st. So this could help you to formalize your knowledge, your personal brand, your professional direction, or your larger vision for the future. Maybe there's a credential, a teaching role, or a serious agreement that is going to support the next stage of your growth coming in. Mars will be square Saturn on September 1st. Maybe a private responsibility, could be a family concern, a work demand, or some practical limitation that's going to require a slower timeline or maybe a firmer boundary. Handle what needs to be handled behind the scenes before trying to force a more public move here. Venus is also going to be entering her pre-retrograde shadow in your 3rd house on the 31st. So contracts, career conversations, transportation, or communication matters are beginning now. And those things might need to be revisited later for a revision in terms of, Venus going full retrograde in the fall. So Leo, greater visibility is probably what's available for you now, but you may no longer be willing to trade your authenticity for applause or attention for an inadequate compensation in your mind. So that old version of you is still going to know how to perform the role, right? But the person that you are becoming wants that role, that agreement, and the money to actually fit with everything else. Best of luck to you, Leo. For Virgo Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. This second half of August may bring something private into the open for you. Your chart ruler, Mercury, begins this period in Leo in your 12th house. A family matter, a relationship discussion, a confidential opportunity, or a professional decision may be developing quietly behind the scenes. Then we've got Mercury entering Virgo. It's going to meet up with the Sun in your 1st house and also square Uranus in your career house. So the deeper story is quite clear. Something that you have been privately considering may lead to a visible personal decision, and that decision may change both a relationship and your professional direction. Now let's look at the 13th through the 17th. We've got Mercury connecting with Venus and then joining up with Jupiter in your 12th house. We also have Venus in your 2nd house sextiling Jupiter. Now, Jupiter rules your house of home, family, clients, and important agreements. So this could describe a confidential offer, private negotiation, a family decision, maybe a decision relating to your housing, or a relationship matter that is not yet ready to be announced. Someone may offer financial or emotional support to you. A client or a partner may approach you privately with something, or you may be quietly preparing for a professional or a career change. But on the 17th, Mars in your 11th house is going to square Neptune in your 8th. So a friend, an organization, a collaborator, or a future plan may involve unclear expectations around money, debt, emotional labor, or responsibility. Now, Mars in Cancer can become protective of the group, so you may want to save the project, defend a friend, or contribute because you care about everyone who's involved. But caring does not really make vague terms safe for you. So before lending money, taking on a debt, accepting unpaid work, or just becoming responsible for a shared problem, ask what's actually yours, right? Who owns what, who pays for what, and what happens if this plan doesn't work out as expected. Well, Mercury is going to trine Saturn, and that will help you to turn some private possibility into a more structured agreement. 21st through the 25th. Venus opposes Saturn on August 21st, and that's across your 2nd, 8th house axis. So this can bring a serious conversation about personal income, shared expenses, debts, taxes, or insurance rate, or the financial structure of a relationship. You might be asking whether you are being paid fairly, whether shared expenses are truly shared, or whether a person's support remains reliable once this agreement becomes inconvenient. Saturn also rules your houses of children, work, creativity, and health. So a child-related expense here. Maybe a creative project. There's a workload issue or a health responsibility that could affect the financial decision that you're making. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet with the South Node in your 12th. A private burden or some sort of behind-the-scenes role might be ending around this time. You may no longer be willing to keep a concern a secret. Maybe you're no longer continuing to do some invisible work or wait indefinitely for someone else to make a decision. Now it might be less about needing more time to think, and it's probably more about admitting that you're already, you already know what needs to happen here. The 27th through the 28th, Mercury is going to meet the Sun in Virgo in your first house on the 27th. So this is a powerful moment of personal clarity. You might decide to speak up, change your role, present yourself differently. You might be setting a boundary, or you may move forward with a professional direction that you've been considering privately. Then the Pisces lunar eclipse is going to activate your 7th house of partnerships, contracts, and one-on-one relationships. Here we might see a relationship that reaches a turning point. There could be a client agreement that changes, a contract that may be completed or maybe renegotiated around this time, or another person may finally reveal what they are willing or maybe unwilling to contribute. Now, at the same time, Mercury and the Sun are going to square off with Uranus in your 10th house. A career announcement, a change in management, a new opportunity popping up, a shift in professional responsibility might trigger a job change, right? So maybe a job change affects your relationship. Maybe a partner's decision alters your career plan. Maybe a client agreement becomes more visible or maybe more demanding, if you will. Could be that your own professional growth is going to require a relationship adjustment to the person that you are becoming. Now, Jupiter, the traditional ruler of this eclipse in your 12th house here, so something previously private is now really shaping this agreement. If we take a look at Neptune, who is the modern ruler in your 8th house, that makes trust, intimacy, dependency, and shared resources kind of central to this thing that's happening. Now, the question may not be whether you care about this person. It might be whether the relationship has enough honesty and practical support to truly hold what comes next. At the very end of the month, Jupiter is going to trine Saturn on the 31st. So this can support you maybe taking on some therapy, doing some private healing, some financial planning, maybe debt restructuring, or maybe you're taking a look at how stable a shared money agreement is. You may find a way to accept support without surrendering your independence. But Mars is going to square Saturn on September 1st. So maybe a friend, a team, an organization, or a future plan meets a financial or an emotional limit around this time. You might need to decline a commitment, right? You might need to clarify ownership. You might need to ask for a repayment of some sort. Or maybe you stop participating in an arrangement that really just depends upon your unpaid labor. Venus also enters her pre-retrograde shadow in your 2nd house on the 31st. Pay attention to income, spending, self-worth, and financial agreements here. Some of these matters might return and require a revision in the fall once we get full Venus retrograde. So for you, Virgo, something that you've been carrying around privately is now going to require a more clear or visible decision. There's a relationship or a professional arrangement that might have to change because you are changing. And the goal is not to become less caring or dependable, but it is wanting you to stop offering your money, your labor, and your loyalty under terms that require you to kind of disappear. Good luck to you, Virgo. For Libra Rising, welcome. I hope you are well. The second half of August may bring an opening through a friend, a professional network, maybe an organization that you're involved with, or someone who connects you with the right opportunity. Well, Mercury and Jupiter are moving through your 11th house while your chart ruler Venus is pretty strong in Libra, so your first house here. You might feel more visible, more socially connected, and just more confident about your plan. But Venus is also moving toward this opposition with Saturn in your 7th house. So the deeper question is whether the partner, the client, or the agreement that's attached to this opportunity can actually support what is going to truly be required. If we take a look at the 13th through the 17th, Mercury connects with Venus and then joins up with Jupiter in your 11th. Venus also sextiles Jupiter. So someone may recommend you, they might introduce you to a useful contact, maybe they invite you to be a part of a collaboration, or maybe they just help a long-term goal feel much more possible. And because Jupiter rules your house of communication and work, this might also involve some writing, teaching, training, employment, maybe an opportunity within a team or an organization. So a friend or a professional connection could lead directly to work for you. Your audience may grow. Could be that there's a project that's been developing quietly and maybe that now finds the people who actually need it. But on the 17th, Mars in your career house is going to square Neptune in your relationship house. So Mars rules both money and partnerships for you. So this complication may involve a client, a partner, a contract, or a compensation agreement. Someone might be really enthusiastic without really being able to define the scope. There could be a client that wants, a deep commitment before clarifying, the payment possibly. There could also be a partner who supports your ambition in theory, but maybe they don't fully understand what that thing is going to require in terms of the home life. Now, Mars in Cancer can become really protective of relationship and security. So you might feel pressure to defend your work or maybe prove that you are committed. But Neptune here suggests that assumptions still require filling in some of the important blanks, right? So clarify the role, the pay, the timeline, and the decision-making authority before you actually act. You don't have to demonstrate enthusiasm by agreeing to vague terms, right? Get them laid out. The 21st to the 25th, Venus is going to oppose Saturn on the 21st, so that's across your first 7th house. Now, because Venus is your chart ruler, this may bring a serious conversation about commitment, boundaries, availability, and mutual effort. So here you might realize that you've been making yourself more agreeable or flexible in order to keep an agreement functioning. Cooperation is definitely one of your gifts, Libra, but cooperation cannot mean that you adjust while everyone else kind of magically remains unchanged. Well, Saturn rules your house of home, family, children, romance, and creativity. So the discussion might involve private life support, right? So think about, can the household actually accommodate this opportunity? Who handles childcare or family responsibilities in this situation? Does a partner make space for your goals? Maybe is a creative or a romantic commitment asking for more than either person involved can realistically give. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet the South Node in your 11th house. This might be an old friendship, a group role, or a future plan that is kind of reaching its limit. You might no longer want to be the social glue or the unpaid organizer, or maybe the person whose contacts and emotional labor, kind of support everyone else. The goal probably still matters very much to you, but your role within this group might need to change. The 27th and the 28th, we've got Mercury meeting the Sun in Virgo, your 12th house on the 27th. So this can bring private clarity about what has been draining you, what needs to end, and what must be reorganized behind the scenes. Then the Pisces lunar eclipse is going to activate your 6th house of work, health, schedules, and daily responsibility. Now, at the same time, the Sun and Mercury are squaring Uranus in your 9th. Now, a development involving travel, education, or long-range plans could suddenly alter your routine. This could be a work trip that changes. There could be a course or a certification that's going to require more time than you thought. Maybe a legal or an administrative matter that is going to create some extra labor or work for you. Or it could be a new direction that might take your old schedule and kind of make it possible to maintain going forward. Well, Jupiter is the traditional ruler of this eclipse and is in your 11th house. So that would link the workload directly to a team, friendship, organization, or the future goal. Neptune is the modern ruler in this and is in your 7th house. So maybe a partner, a client, or an agreement kind of now becomes a part of the strain that's happening. The arrangement may only work because you remain endlessly available. So give that some thought, right? Someone else's uncertainty might keep becoming your emergency, if you will. Or there might be a group opportunity that depends upon your labor and no one has really formally kind of acknowledged that yet. This eclipse can also expose the real cost of your workload, your energy, and your body. The solution might be to try to delegate, right? Maybe change a schedule, find some better terms, or maybe withdraw from an obligation that no longer gives you enough back. At the very end of the month, Jupiter is going to trine Saturn on the 31st. So a community opportunity, a friendship, or a future plan may become more substantial through a reliable partnership or some sort of formal agreement. Now, the right collaborator might prove that they are willing to help carry the structure, right? They're not just here to admire the vision, if you will. But Saturn is going to be making a square to, Mars is going to be making a square to Saturn on the 1st. So career demands and relationship expectations are probably going to collide. Could be a client that sets a limit, maybe a partner needs something different from you, or you might reach a point where a public responsibility cannot continue under the current terms. Do your best to state clearly what you can do, what you cannot do, and what support is necessary. Then allow that other person to show whether they are prepared to participate in the solution. Venus is also going to enter her pre-retrograde shadow on the 31st. So pay attention to identity, appearance, trust, and agreements beginning around this time, because some of those matters are probably going to return and require major revision later in the fall. So for you, Libra, a meaningful opportunity may be arriving through your connections, but the future cannot be built entirely on your willingness to accommodate everyone else. The partnership, the workload, and the agreement must have room for you too. And the right people will not only admire what you are creating, they will also help you carry what it takes to make that thing real. Best of luck to you. For Scorpio Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August may bring career momentum, greater visibility, or a professional opportunity that places your work more directly in front of other people. Mercury and Jupiter are moving through Leo and your 10th house of career, leadership, and public direction. But your chart ruler, Mars, is moving through Cancer. That's your 9th house of travel, education, legal matters, and long-term plans. So the deeper question is whether this larger vision and your daily life can support the professional growth that is becoming available. If we take a look at the 13th through the 17th, Mercury is going to connect with Venus, and she's going to join up with Jupiter in your 10th house, and Venus is also going to sextile Jupiter. So this can bring recognition and interview, a larger assignment, maybe a promising client, or support from someone with influence. Now, Mercury rules your house of shared resources, networks, and audiences. So the opportunity may arrive through a professional contact, an organization, or a collaborator. Well, Jupiter also rules your income and creativity houses. So this could involve better compensation, creative work that's becoming more public, Or maybe you are turning a personal talent into something professionally useful. Venus in your 12th suggests that someone might be advocating for you privately, or that the opportunity is still confidential. But on the 17th of August, Mars is going to square Neptune in your 6th. Now, Mars in Cancer can be fiercely protective. So you might feel very strongly about defending a professional direction or a legal position, a publication, or a long-term vision that you have. But Neptune is going to suggest that the workload or the practical requirements might not be completely clear, right? So the role may require more travel, training, or daily labor than expected. A timeline might be vague here, or you might be so invested in the larger purpose that you underestimate what it will require from your health or your regular routine. Don't commit based on the vision alone. Try to verify the schedule, responsibilities, the credentials involved, and the support, right? Your instincts may be identifying a real concern. Do your best to investigate it before you treat it as any kind of an emergency. The 21st, the 25th. Venus is going to oppose Saturn on the 21st. That's across your 12th, 6th house axis. And because Venus rules your partnership houses, a client, a partner, or an agreement might be part of the strain here. Someone might support your growth publicly while really relying heavily on your labor privately. There might be a client that expects more than the contract actually includes. Maybe there's a partner's private circumstances that affect your availability. Or it could be an arrangement that's really only functioning because you keep compensating sort of behind the scenes. Saturn rules your communication and your home houses. So family demands, housing, transportation, or maybe a difficult conversation is involved here. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet up with the South Node in your 10th house. This looks like an old professional identity or a leadership role has reached its limit. So you might be tired of being the person who can always handle the crisis. You may no longer want responsibility without some level of authority. Or you might realize that a career goal that you once wanted no longer fits this future plan that you have now, right? The professional opportunity is going to remain, but the title, the team, and the terms are probably going to need to change. The 27th and the 28th, Mercury meets the Sun in Virgo and your 11th house on the 27th. So this is probably going to bring some clarity around the team, friendships, professional networks, and your long-term goals. You might understand who is genuinely available to help and who mainly enjoys being associated with the idea. Then that Pisces lunar eclipse is going to activate the fifth house of children, romance, and personal fulfillment. This might be a child-related development that possibly alters your schedule or your budget. There might be a creative project that becomes more public. Maybe a romantic situation requires a decision around this time, or there's something personally meaningful that is going to demand a real place in your future. At the same time, the Sun and Mercury are going to square off with Venus in your 8th house. So the personal development might immediately be affecting your funding, your shared money, your debts, your trust in some way, or what another person is prepared to contribute here. So a creative project might need an investment. There might be a child's need that kind of changes your financial plan. Maybe a collaborator wants access to your talent without really offering fair ownership or compensation in some way. There could be a relationship that needs more honest discussion about truth and shared responsibility. Jupiter, the ruler of this eclipse, is in your career house. So that would connect the personal turning point directly to your public direction. Something that you care about might become part of your own work, or it might require that there's a career structure and an adjustment needed around that. Now, the question is whether your daily life and your financial agreements can actually support what is becoming important now. At the very end of the month, Jupiter is going to trine Saturn on the 31st. So this can really help professional growth become more stable through stronger routines, clearer responsibilities, better support, or maybe improved skills. You might have a role that becomes official. A project might gain some structure now. Or you might recognize what needs to be delegated before success becomes like another form of exhaustion for you. But we also have Mars squaring off with Saturn on the 1st of September. So you might need a longer timeline, additional training, or a more realistic schedule. Do not assume that the limitation means that the vision is wrong. It might be showing you what must change in terms of your daily system before that next step is actually sustainable. Venus is also going to enter her pre-retrograde shadow in your 12th house on the 31st. So pay attention to private relationship matters, hidden expenses, and work that's happening behind the scenes here. Some of these stories might return and require some revision later in the fall. So for you, Scorpio, career momentum is very real at this time, but the opportunity needs honest financial terms. It needs some reliable support and a daily system that does not depend entirely upon your ability to survive more pressure than everyone else around you does. You're probably still capable of carrying that pressure. That does not mean that carrying it should remain the plan. Best of luck to you. For Sagittarius Rising, this second half of August may bring a larger idea, educational path, travel plan, or long-range vision into your professional life. Mercury and your chart ruler Jupiter are moving through Leo, your 9th house. Then Mercury and the Sun are going to move into Virgo, your 10th house of career, leadership, and public direction. So something that you have been learning, planning, teaching, or imagining may be ready to become an actual role. But home, partnership, and financial realities may require that plan change before it can fully move forward. On the 13th through the 17th, Mercury connects with Venus and then joins up with Jupiter in your 9th. Venus is also going to be making a sextile to Jupiter. So this can bring encouraging news involving education, teaching, relocation, or an opportunity connected with a wider audience. Mercury rules your relationships in your career houses. So a partner, a client, an employer, a recruiter, or maybe a professional contact might be part of this opening for you. A conversation could turn an idea into a proposal. A credential might become professionally useful. Maybe it's a publishing or a teaching opportunity that gains some momentum, or possibly a client or a collaborator that helps you to reach a larger market. Now, Venus in your 11th house would suggest that a friend, an audience, an organization may provide the connection here. But on the 17th, Mars is going to square off with Neptune. So this might introduce some uncertainty around shared money, debt, funding, trust possibly, or what another person is truly prepared to contribute. And the financial question could involve a child, a romantic relationship, or a personal dream. Well, Mars in Cancer can act from loyalty and protectiveness. So you may want to fund something because you believe in it, maybe help someone that you love, or commit some resources because the opportunity feels emotionally important. But Neptune can make the cost, the risk, or other person's commitment kind of difficult to measure for you. So confirm the numbers, clarify ownership, ask what happens if the plan costs more or takes longer than expected. The dream is probably something that deserves support, but it should not require that you sort of pretend that uncertainty is enough of a financial strategy, right? You need to nail some things down. The 21st to the 25th, Venus is going to oppose Saturn on the 21st. So a friendship, an audience opportunity, maybe a future goal is probably going to conflict with maybe a child, a creative responsibility, a romantic commitment, or some sort of personal priority that you have. This might look like a collaboration, that receives plenty of enthusiasm but very little practical labor. Maybe a relationship that needs to address whether both people are moving toward the same future. Maybe a creative project that needs just a firmer budget or a timeline around it. Saturn rules your money and communication houses. So compensation, paperwork, scheduling, or the contractual terms may be the actual limit here. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet up with the South Node, and that's in your 9th house before they move into your career house. So an old belief, educational path, a travel plan, or maybe a vision for the future is probably reaching its limit here. You might realize that you have outgrown a direction, one that kind of felt more certain in prior years. Or you may be ready to stop preparing indefinitely and just begin doing that thing that you already know you are interested in. Sagittarius can always find another class, philosophy, or a distant horizon to sort of focus on. But the question now is, what are you going to do with all the knowledge that you have, right? The vision needs a professional form. 27th and the 28th, Mercury meets the Sun in Virgo on the 27th. So this can bring some clarity through an employer, a partner, a client, a professional conversation. You might understand what a role requires. Maybe a career decision becomes very obvious to you. Maybe another person's plans force you to kind of clarify your own. And then we're going to have that Pisces lunar eclipse that activates your 4th house of home, family, roots, and private life. At the same time, the Sun and Mercury are going to be squaring off with Uranus in your 7th house. This might be a partner, a client, or an agreement that introduces a sudden change. So a job could require relocation or more travel. A partner's decision may affect where you live. A new contract could alter your schedule or your work location. Could also be that there's a family matter that changes what you can accept professionally. Jupiter is the ruler of this eclipse and is in your 9th. So that connects the home turning point that's happening with relocation, education, or travel to this larger life direction that you're faced with. Neptune is the modern ruler and is in your 5th house. This would suggest that a child, romance, creative project, or a personal dream may be a part of the decision here. This may not simply be a choice between home and career, though. It may be a realization that your private life, your professional future, and your relationships all have to work within the same reality. Then at the very end of the month, Jupiter is going to trine Saturn on the 31st. Now, because Jupiter is your chart ruler, this can help you to turn some knowledge, experience, or a larger vision into something more structured. So maybe a creative project gains more discipline, or maybe a plan involving children becomes more workable. But Mars is going to be making a square to Saturn on September 1st. So shared money, debts, ownership, or emotional obligation may create a firm limit around this plan. You might need to revise the budget. Maybe you need to clarify responsibilities. Maybe a step gets delayed, or you refuse to kind of finance an arrangement that's built more on hope than actual preparation. Venus is going to enter her pre-retrograde shadow on the 31st. So pay attention to friendships, professional networks, long-term goals here. Some of these relationships or plans may return and require revision later in the fall. So for you, Sagittarius, the larger vision may be ready to become a career direction, but it must work within your home, your relationships, your finances, and your personal responsibilities. You're not being asked to abandon whatever you have on the horizon. You are being asked to build a road that can actually carry you there. Best of luck to you. Capricorn Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August here might bring some movement around shared finances, debts, taxes, and insurance, or maybe support from another person or institution. Mercury and Jupiter are moving through your 8th house before Mercury enters Virgo, which is the 9th house of legal matters, education, and long-range planning. Now, while your chart ruler, Saturn, is retrograde in the 4th house of home, family, housing, and emotional foundations, there's a financial or professional development that may make a larger plan possible, but new information may require different terms, a revised timeline, or some sort of division of responsibility. If we take a look at the 13th through the 17th, first we have Mercury connecting with Venus, then joining up with Jupiter in your 8th, and Venus is also in your career house and sextiles Jupiter. So this can bring encouraging news involving compensation, benefits, funding, shared expenses, or financial support. There may be a job offer with better resources, possibly a client agreement that provides some greater security for you. Maybe there's a professional contact that helps to resolve a financial problem. Could also be support that becomes available for a home, a family, or a relocation plan. Now, Mercury rules your work and 9th houses. So the financial development may connect directly with employment, training, travel, or just longer-term professional direction in general. On the 17th, Mars in your relationship house is going to square off with Neptune in your 4th. There may be a partner, a client, a collaborator, or a family member that reacts emotionally to a home, housing, or a security issue. Mars in Cancer can become very protective. Someone may want to act really quickly because they feel responsible for keeping the household safe or preserving emotional stability. But Neptune would suggest that the family situation or another person's contribution may not be fully clear yet. So clarify what is actually happening, ask what the other person can realistically provide, and avoid committing to, a rescue plan that's based mainly on guilt, fear, or anxiety that's creating some kind of uncertainty, right? The support might actually be genuine, but the agreement still needs to have clearer terms. 21st through the 25th, Venus opposes Saturn on the 21st. That's across your 10th and 4th house axis. Now, because Saturn is your chart ruler and also rules your income house, this may bring a serious decision involving career, compensation, or home, family, and housing. So a professional opportunity may require more time away from home. A family responsibility may limit your availability. A move or a repair may depend on some kind of career stability. Could be that the compensation may not justify what the opportunity would actually cost your private life. Well, Venus also rules your 5th house, so children, creativity, or a personal project may be part of this decision. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet the South Node in your 8th house. So an old debt, some sort of dependency, financial arrangement, or an emotional obligation may be reaching its limit. You might no longer want to keep solving a shared problem through borrowing, rescuing, or just quietly carrying another person's portion. A benefit, a loan, a payout, or some source of support is probably going to change. Or maybe trust that you need to become more concrete through transparent participation, right? The situation is probably going to continue. The terms, though, the old terms are going to need to change. 27th and the 28th, Mercury is going to meet the Sun in Virgo, your 9th house, on the 27th. So this could bring some clarity involving a legal matter, education, travel or relocation, or your long-term professional plan. Then the Pisces lunar eclipse is going to be activating your 3rd house. So information, paperwork, transportation, appointments, and decisions here. Because the moon rules your relationship house, a partner, a client, a contract, or a direct conversation may be delivering the turning point here. At the same time, the Sun and Mercury are going to square off with Uranus in your 6th. So a work schedule might change. A staffing or a health issue could affect your availability. A document might contain some kind of unexpected condition, or maybe transportation, technology, or just some administrative complications are forcing you to revise your timeline. Well, Jupiter, the traditional ruler of this eclipse, will be in your 8th house. So that ties the information directly to shared money, benefits, debts, and or another person's resources. Now, Neptune is the modern ruler and is in your 4th house. So this would be connecting the decision with home, family, housing, or your private circumstances. The eclipse might be showing you which version of the plan is financially and practically possible, and which version depends upon support that was never really reliable, or at least as reliable as it appeared. All right, at the very end of the month, Jupiter is going to trine your chart ruler Saturn on the 31st. So this can help to stabilize home or family life through financial planning, debt restructuring, insurance, shared resources, or more dependable support, right? A partner might contribute more reliably. A financial agreement might gain some structure. Or you may finally see how to create some greater security without carrying every responsibility alone. But Mars is going to be making a square to Saturn on the 1st of September. So this could be a partner, a client, an agreement that could collide with maybe a firm home, financial, or emotional limit, right? Someone may need to accept more responsibility. Could be a contract that needs to be renegotiated. Or you might have to say that the current arrangement, right, can't continue simply because you have been strong enough to kind of tolerate it. That often is the case for you, Capricorn. Venus also enters her pre-retrograde shadow in the career house on the 31st. So pay attention to professional opportunities, leadership, relationships, your reputation, and just your career agreements. Some of these matters may return and require some significant revision later in the fall. Capricorn, support is probably available to you, but dependable support requires clear agreements and shared responsibility. There is a financial or an emotional complication that is going to begin to make more sense for you. The solution, though, might involve a different contract, a revised plan, or another person finally carrying the portion that actually belongs to them. Security is not created by proving that you can hold everything together. It's created by building a structure where you no longer have to. Aquarius Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August may bring an important relationship, contract, or collaboration opportunity. Mercury and Jupiter are moving through Leo and your 7th house of partnerships and agreements. Then Mercury enters Virgo in your 8th house of shared money, debts, ownership, trust, and responsibility. So another person may genuinely help open a door for you. But the opportunity only works if the workload, the financial terms, and the division of responsibility are clear. 17th through the 13th, Mercury is going to connect with Venus, join up with Jupiter in your 7th house, and then Venus is also going to sextile Jupiter. So this can bring an encouraging conversation with a partner, a client, a recruiter, or someone interested in working with you. Jupiter rules your income and your future planning houses. A relationship or contract could increase your earnings, maybe connect you with a useful network, or move a long-term goal forward. Mercury rules your houses of creativity, children, romance, and shared resources. So this agreement may involve a creative project, a child-related plan, a business partnership, or maybe funding or ownership in some way. There may be some real potential here. But on the 17th, Mars in your 6th house is going to square Neptune in your 3rd. So maybe a work situation becomes emotionally charged because the instructions or the schedule or the expectations were unclear. Mars rules your communication in your career houses. So you might react very strongly to an email, to criticism, to schedule changes, or a professional conversation, especially if you feel responsible for protecting a coworker, a client, or a project. Well, Mars in Cancer can make work problems feel personal. Neptune can make the message kind of incomplete. Ask what was actually said. Confirm the deadline, the scope, the schedule, and the chain of responsibility here. You do not allow another person's poor planning to become your emergency simply because you know how to fix it, right? That's probably not the best course of action. Mercury is going to trine Saturn, so that will support clearer documentation and maybe a serious conversation about whatever the terms are. 21st through the 25th. Venus opposes Saturn on the 21st. So a travel, relocation, education, or maybe legal plan might encounter some sort of paperwork, timing, or practical limitations here. Because Saturn is your traditional chart ruler, this might feel a little bit personal to you, but Saturn may simply be showing you what the plan requires before it can become real. Saturn also rules your 12th house. So a private concern, maybe fatigue or limitation that you have not been discussing might need to be included in this decision that you're making. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet with the South Node in your 7th house. This looks like an old relationship, a client arrangement, or a partnership pattern that has probably reached its limit, right? A client might be expanding a request without kind of expanding the compensation attached. A partner may want the benefits of a plan while remaining vague about their own contribution. Or an old relationship dynamic might return, right? And it's giving you a chance to see whether anything has actually changed. As Mercury enters your 8th house, goodwill and polite assumption are no longer enough for you. Money, ownership, trust, and responsibility need to be discussed directly. 27th and the 28th, Mercury meets up with the Sun in Virgo in your 8th house on the 27th. Well, this can bring some clarity around shared expenses, debts, funding, compensation, or what another person can reliably contribute. Then that Pisces lunar eclipse is going to be activating your 2nd house of income, values, and self-worth. Now, because the moon rules your 6th house, a job, health, staffing, or scheduling development may trigger a financial decision. Your workload could change. A health or a caregiving need might affect what you can actually accept professionally. You may recognize that the compensation no longer justifies the amount of labor that you are being required to put in. Now, at the same time, the Sun and Mercury are squaring off with Uranus in your 5th. So a sudden development involving a child, a creative project, romantic relationship, or a personal priority is probably going to alter this agreement in some way, right? Maybe a child-related expense affects shared money. Maybe there's a creative collaboration that requires clearer ownership. Or maybe a personal project has become important enough that you are no longer willing to devote all of your time to someone else's priorities. Well, Jupiter is the ruler of this eclipse and is in your 7th house. So this would tie the financial turning point directly to a partner, a client, or a contract. The relationship is probably going to continue, but the agreement might need to become more specific in the future. At the very end of the month, we've got Jupiter trining Saturn on the 31st. So this can help a partnership or a contract become more substantial through either some realistic expectations or clearer communication. A client relationship might become more formal. Maybe a partner becomes more dependable, or both people might finally understand exactly what they are committing to. But Mars is going to square Saturn on the 1st of September. So work demands, health needs, transportation, or scheduling may create some kind of firm limit here. You might need to adjust your deadline. Maybe you need to reduce your workload. Maybe there's a concern regarding a document, or maybe you are refusing responsibility that was never really yours to begin with, right? This is going to be that moment that you can't really rely on, I thought you meant, right? ... You need to put it in writing, clarify the deliverables, name what the compensation is, and definitely decide in advance what happens when that plan changes. Well, Venus also enters her pre-retrograde shadow at the end of the month on the 31st. That's in your 9th house. So pay attention to travel, relocation, education, legal matters, and your long-range plans. Some of these decisions are probably going to return and require some revision later in the fall. For you, Aquarius, another person may genuinely help open a door for you, but the relationship, the money, and the workload must be built around some clear terms, not assumptions or goodwill or your ability to absorb whatever is kind of left undefined. The right agreement will not require you to guess what everyone else meant, right? It will make the responsibility visible enough before you so that you can say yes. Good luck to you, Aquarius. For Pisces Rising, welcome. I hope you are doing well. The second half of August may bring some growth through work, clients, employment, practical support, or maybe a change in how your daily life is organized. Your chart ruler, Jupiter, is moving through Leo, your 6th house of work, health, routines, and responsibility. Mercury's there too, just before entering Virgo, which is your 7th house of relationships, clients, and agreements. So a practical opportunity is probably opening up for you. But the arrangement is only going to work if your money, your home life, your health, and another person's contributions are honestly included in this plan. Then on the 28th, the lunar eclipse is going to occur in Pisces, so going to be personal for you. Your needs may become much harder to negotiate away simply because another person or an entire system is comfortable. Now, the 13th through the 17th, Mercury is going to connect with Venus and then join up with Jupiter in your 6th house. So Venus is also going to sextile Jupiter here as well. This can kind of bring encouraging movement involving employment, a client, a work assignment, maybe scheduling, or just some practical assistance to you. Mercury rules your houses of home and relationships, so the opportunity might involve a new client, a partner support, work from home arrangement, or a household change that is affecting your schedule. And Venus in your 8th house adds benefits, shared resources, financial assistance, or another person contributing more reliably. This might be a job that provides better support. It could be a partner that helps with an expense, or maybe a practical solution that helps work or health decision become a little bit easier. Now on the 17th here, Mars in your 5th house is going to square Neptune in your 2nd. So this can make spending a little bit emotionally charged, right? You might want to help a child. You may want to fund a creative project. Maybe you want to cover a romantic experience or possibly invest in something because it feels personally meaningful to you. Mars in Cancer can be fiercely protective, but Neptune in the money house here can really blur the cost or maybe make hope look suspiciously like a good budget, okay? Before you commit, ask what the total expense might be, whether this is truly something that you should be carrying, or what happens if that plan requires more later. Love is not really a measure of how quickly you should be reaching for your wallet. Mercury is going to be trine Saturn, so that will help you to make this caring decision without sacrificing your own stability. So definitely lean into that. The 21st through the 25th, Venus opposes Saturn. This is across your 2nd, 8th house axis. So this might bring a serious conversation about personal income, shared expenses, debts, support, or maybe the financial structure of a relationship. So a partner's income may affect the household. There could be a payment that is delayed. There's maybe a shared expense that needs to be renegotiated. Or you might be recognizing that you are contributing more money, time, or emotional labor than another person. Well, Saturn rules your houses of future plans and private burdens. So an arrangement that once seemed manageable may now be limiting what you can actually build for yourself. Then the Sun and Mercury are going to meet the South Node in your 6th house. So an old work role, a health pattern, or a habit of making yourself endlessly useful might be reaching its limit. You might feel tired of receiving everyone else's kind of unfinished work. Maybe a client is becoming too demanding. Maybe there's a routine that no longer supports your health. Or maybe there's a system that is only functioning because you keep compensating for all of the weaknesses that are there. Pisces, being needed can feel very meaningful. It can also become a very convenient reason for other people not to change. Well, as Mercury enters your relationship house, the next step is this direct conversation about the agreement, right? Not another private attempt to make everything work all by yourself. 27th and the 28th, Mercury meets the Sun in Virgo. That's your 7th house on the 27th. So this can bring some clarity through a partner, a client, a negotiation, or an important one-on-one conversation, right? Someone may state what they want. The terms might become a little bit clearer around this time, or maybe there is finally an understanding of what you require in order to continue going. Then we're going to have that Pisces lunar eclipse that occurs in your 1st house. So it's directly across from the Sun and Mercury in your 7th. This is definitely a turning point between your needs and another person's expectations. A relationship is probably going to need an adjustment. If it's a contract, it needs to be renegotiated or completed. If it's a client, the arrangement needs to change. Or you may decide that preserving that agreement is no longer worth becoming exhausted or underpaid or, disconnected from yourself in some way. Now, because the moon rules your 5th house, there could be a child, romance, or a personal desire that kind of helps trigger that decision. At the same time, though, the Sun and Mercury are squaring off with Uranus in your 4th. So maybe a sudden home, housing, or living situation development kind of alters whatever this agreement is, right? Maybe a partner wants to move. Maybe a family member needs are affecting your availability. Maybe a work arrangement needs to change where or how you live. Could also be a household that simply no longer supports your current schedule. Now, Jupiter, the traditional ruler of this eclipse and also your chart ruler, is in the 6th house. Neptune is the modern ruler and is in your 2nd house. So money, security, self-worth are also a part of this decision. Now, this eclipse does not automatically end a relationship. It may mean that relationship, that contract, or that living arrangement must finally include your actual needs too. Right at the end of the month here, we've got Jupiter trining Saturn. And this can help work, employment, routines, or practical support create some better financial stability for you, right? Maybe there is a job that becomes more secure. Maybe compensation or benefits improve around this time. Maybe there's a healthier routine that will strengthen your ability to work. Or maybe there's a skill that you've been developing and now you're going to start to produce something that's tangible with that. But Mars is going to square Saturn on September 1st. So there could be a child-related expense, a romantic situation, a trip, or a personal risk that kind of meets a firm financial limit here. You might need to revise your budget. You might need to revise your budget, postpone a purchase, or maybe stop carrying an expense that should really be shared. Venus also enters her pre-retrograde shadow in your 8th house on the 31st. So definitely pay attention to shared money, benefits, intimacy, financial agreements. Some of these matters are going to return and they're going to require some deeper revision later in the fall. For you, Pisces, a work or relationship opportunity coming up is very real, but it cannot depend upon you being kind of endlessly flexible and forgiving and available, right? Your body has limits, your money has limits, your time has limits. The right relationship and agreement will not punish you for acknowledging those things. It will, though, help you build a life where your needs are part of the plan. Good luck to you.